Now that I have my needle threaded with a knot at the end, I'm ready to practice the stitch that we'll be using for our sewing project this week. The stitch we'll practice is called the running stitch, and we're going to practice it on a piece of just regular plain paper. On your paper, you can draw a little path for yourself to follow. I'm using a marker so that you can see it, but you can draw your path with a pencil. I don't want my path to be too close to the edge of my paper because it can tear if we're close to the edge. So I'm going to come a little bit closer in toward the middle, and I'm just going to give myself a path. And then maybe I'll turn it around and come back down. Maybe go over and come back down. You can draw whatever type of path you want, but I would suggest that you keep your lines fairly straight and not too many turns. Running stitch, just like a person can run in any direction, you can do a running stitch in any direction. So I am right-handed. I am going to hold my needle with the hand that I write with. So I write with this hand, I will sew with this hand. If you hold your pencil with your left hand, then you will do this with your left hand. It will be the opposite. So I don't have a knot tied onto my needle eye, so I'm going to pinch it on the eye. This is my sewing hand, and this hand is going to be my holding hand. So you can identify for yourself your sewing hand and your holding hand. Go ahead and do that now. My holding hand is going to hold my paper, and if we were using fabric, it would be holding my fabric. I am going to start underneath, because I don't want my knot to be on the front of my paper. So I'm going to hold my paper, and then I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to feel around underneath my paper. And you can kind of see my needle poking through. Do you see where it is? You'll be able to kind of feel to see where your needle is. And because this needle is not metal, it's plastic, it won't hurt you if you poke it into your finger a little bit. So I'm going to put my sewing hand underneath my paper. I'm going to find the start of my line, and I'm going to push. Oh, and because this paper is so thin, I don't even have to push very hard at all for my needle to start to poke through. And I'm going to push, push, push. Once the eye of my needle is starting to come in, I'm going to pinch it, pinch where the yarn is, and pull. If I don't pinch, what's going to happen is my yarn is going to just keep coming off of my needle. I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to pull this so it has a small little tail and pinch there. And I'm just going to gently pull until my knot stops my thread from coming through the other side. If I pull really hard, I'll pull it right through, so I don't want to do that. Let me try that again. Coming up, and I'm going to pinch and pull, 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 and then I'm going to stop at my knot. Okay. From here, I'm going to sew along this line right here. I want to leave little stitches that are about as wide as my pinky fingernail. If I make my stitches really big, they won't be very strong. So I'm going to take my holding hand and I'm going to scoot forward on my line, and I'm going to push my needle through. Did you hear it? And because we're sewing on paper, it's poking a little hole. I'm going to push, push, push till my needle disappears, almost. And then, without flipping my paper all the way over, I'm just going to lift it up a little bit. I'm going to pull, pinch, and pull, it through. That's my first stitch. Okay, I am on the back side of my sewing now. I'm underneath it. So I don't want to come around from the side through to the front because that is going to pull my paper over. If my needle is under my paper, I'm going to come from underneath. Say it with me. If I'm under my paper, I'll come from underneath. So no wrapping around. Hold your paper with your holding hand. Hold your needle with your sewing hand and feel on your line for where your needle is. Oh, my needle's over here. Is that matched up with my line? Nope. So I need to come over to my line, find it, push. There it is. It's not exactly on my line, but it's pretty close. Push and pull. Once the eye comes through, what do? That's right, I pinch it. I pinch it so that my thread doesn't come off. And I pull, 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 so there's no little noodle left hanging there. So it's nice and flat, but don't pull too hard or you'll rip it right out. Okay, I'm gonna leave a little space that's about as wide as a pinky. I'm gonna go forward on my line, push, 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 push. When my eye of my needle disappears, I'm gonna go flip my paper up, pull the needle, and look at that, I've got like a little noodle there. I'm gonna keep pulling till it's nice and flat. Now my needle is underneath, so I'm going to come from underneath. And I'm right-handed, so I need to get that picked up with my correct hand. I'm pinching the thread on the eye of my needle. I'm underneath and I'm feeling where my needle is, and when I find it in the right spot, I'll push, 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 push. And pull. And let's say I pulled too hard and my thread came off. Not a big deal. I will just take my thread, fold it over, pinch it hard, and push it back through the eye. All right, I'm on the top, so I'm not going to go around and come under. On the top, I go through the top. Push along that line. Pull, 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 pull till my thread is flat. And then let's say I wasn't paying attention and I did this. Uh-oh. Something messed up. Something wrong happened. Take your thread off. Gently pull it out. Look what happened. I went from the back to the front. I shouldn't have done that. Not a big deal. And when you feel like you've got these steps down, I want you to start sewing it too, sewing on yours. I came around to the front. Should be on the underside. Artists, you're just learning a new skill, so you will make mistakes and that's okay. What I want you to do is spend the rest of your class time right now just practicing sewing lines on a piece of paper. Whatever paper you've got, and if you finish a full line, you can start a new one. So go ahead and do that now. Start to sew a line on your paper if you haven't already. get to a corner, you can turn your paper and keep going. Alright artists, my thread is starting to get quite short, so I'm going to show you what to do when you get close to the end of your thread, or if you are sewing on your project tomorrow and decide you want to change colors, this is what you'll do. You go ahead and push through so that your needle is on the back of your work. And then, while you still have your yarn on your needle, you're going to take your needle and stick it underneath one of your stitches. And it will make like a little loop. And then you can stick your needle back through the loop, pull, and it will make a knot. Then you can remove your needle from the yarn. If there's still time left on your timer, you can continue to practice the running stitch with yarn from your baggie for the rest of class.